House,
Here.
Mr. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Hammond.
Here.
Ms. McCready is absent. Mr. McQueen.
Here.
Mr. O'Day is absent. Ms. Amara.
Here.
Notice of this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News, Courier News, and the Star Ledger, filed with the municipal clerk and posted on the municipal bulletin board on December 24th, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do not have any presentations. Here's Tom O'Day. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from February 22nd and March 8th?
I'll move to approve the minutes from February 22nd and March 8th.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Now it is our first open session, so if anyone from the public would like to be heard, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anthony Soriano, our clerk, will hold up a timer for you. Just please give your name and your address, and either raise your hand in the participant list, or if you can't do that, just wave and we'll try and see you. So would anyone from the public like to be heard at this time? I don't see any hands up. Anybody? All right, then I will close the public session. We have an ordinance that we are continuing the public hearing. So Jack, what do we need to do on this?
You need to, by motion, continue the public hearing until the April 12th, is it? I don't have my calendar in front of me.
Yeah.
April 12th meeting with no further notice of publication to allow the planning board additional time to report back to the governing body.
Okay, yeah, we had originally scheduled the public hearing for this meeting, but the planning board was not going to meet in time, and they need to review it because it is a change to our zoning, is it not?
Yeah, half of it's a change to zoning and half is a police regulation. But in any event, they have 35 days, so we need to continue the hearing.
So I need a motion to continue the public hearing, is it?
Yeah, I'll move to continue the public hearing on April 12th at 7 p.m. awaiting the planning board recommendation.
I'll second.
Yeah, and as far as I'm aware, they are still meeting Thursday night.
Okay, and is that a voice vote?
Yeah, voice vote, yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will have that hearing at the next meeting. Moving on to resolutions. We have 2168 to 2177. I want to thank Leslie Roberson for explaining 2 of them to me and the rest of the council. She's our new CFO. It was 2169, the 3-year average in computing revenues. Evidently, budget law does not allow us to project revenues beyond what we had in the previous year. However, because of COVID and all the upset in revenues, they are now saying we can do a 3-year average of the last 3 years' revenue, which I believe you said we only used for recreation and what was the other thing? And the pool, because those were way under what we would have in a normal year. And we expect this year, hopefully, to have our programs up and the pool open for the whole season. So that's the explanation on that one. And the self-examination, which is 2173, is basically the budget is supposed to be reviewed every 3 years, once every 3 years by the state. We had that review last year, so the other 2 years we need to do a self-examination, which means it's certified by the CFO and the auditor also signs off on it. So that's why that's there. So thank you, Leslie, for that explanation. Did I explain it right? Did I get it right? Yeah, okay, good. Are there any other questions on any of those resolutions?
I assume that we're pulling 2177 out because we have a couple words to say this evening.
That one we'll do separately, right? So on 2168 to 2176, anybody? Are we good? Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
And I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Mr. O'Day,
Yes.
Ms. Zamara.
Yes.
Okay, it is now we're on 2177, which is introduction of the 2021 municipal budget. I want to commend our finance committee who put a lot of time and effort into putting this together, communicating it to the rest of the council. It was a tough year to project, to anticipate, to adjust. So thank you for all your hard work. Tom C., are you going to share your screen for the?
Yes, I just realized I'm not sure how to do that on this platform. Is there a
Yeah, so
button?
if you scroll over the bottom, Tom, there's a little green button that says share screen.
Well, I think you have to be a co-host. I think you.
Oh,
need
wait,
to-
hold on, I got it.
Co-host.
Oh, are you allowed to do it? Because sometimes you.
I think you are, but I'll make him a co-host anyway.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, there you go.
We have it?
It's good.
I
Yeah.
do.
Okay. All right, well, so it was a challenging year, of course, just because of COVID and everything that's going on around that. And then I jumped on midstream, and I have to say that the team, the finance committee, and Leslie were probably so far ahead of the game that this was 80% done by the time I started. But I just want to say this. As far as governing bodies' knowledge of budgets, in my 20 years, the folks that I worked with had such an in-depth knowledge of the budget that it was very impressive. And I felt very lucky to have them sort of ushering this along, because obviously I didn't know the community that well as I jumped on board. So thank you very much to the committee.
Tom, do you want to go to full screen?
Okay. So I would just go to slideshow from the beginning, right?
Yep. There you go.
You got it?
We do.
Okay. All right. So to kick it off, we're going to do a tag team, but I'll handle the first few slides. In sort of the broadest strokes, we should say that this is just the introduction this evening. So we are not getting into the fine details of the budget. We're not going to go through all the line items. We just want to provide you a sense of where we landed. Once the budget is introduced, then it actually belongs to the governing body, where we can have a more in-depth conversations before the public hearing, and then even after the public hearing, if the governing body thinks it's warranted. Now, I will say this too, although it becomes the council's once we introduce, every single member of the governing body has been involved in, and we were touching base all along as we were going through this. So in terms of big strokes, Bernardsville is in pretty good shape. You know, we were ranked in the top 3 places to live by a niche for the points that are described below. The proposed increase in expenses in the budget is 2.96%, and it breaks down to 1.9% is in line with inflation. Costs go up. And then 1% we can attribute to the voter-approved road referendum, and we have a slide showing you what progress has been made on that front. We are projecting now that the overall tax rate is to remain flat. we still need to see where the other entities land. But part of the contribution to that is our assessed values went up by about $60 million. I think for the first time in a few years, which is very good news. We did make cuts where we had to keep the expenditures down. Of course, we had to work around contractual and statutory expenses such as healthcare spending, pensions, so on and so forth. So about 1.96 of that was needed to offset those costs that are outside of our direct control. Now, at the same time, the budget is an instrument to invest in the community. And so we did make room for that as well, such as fire equipment, road work, of course, the redevelopment of the downtown, open space and recreation. The big picture about the economy in Bernardsville, I think it's interesting to point out that we have, as far as household income, in that little graph on the left, it shows the pink bar indicates where we are compared to the county, the state, and the nation as a whole in terms of median family income, household income, and per capita income. The middle graph indicates where our community sits in terms of the employment position, and unemployment is not affecting, it's affecting the nation for sure, but we seem to be faring better than most. The other great thing that we have going for us is that unlike in many communities, our top 10 taxpayers, property taxpayers, make up a very small slice of the pie in terms of the overall tax base. So that means we can withstand some changes if they happen in the top 10, whereas if that happens in a smaller, less diverse community, then the impact on the budget can be really very severe, and you're fishtailing when that happens. So our borough valuation, you could see that it's this is the history of our valuation over the past 10 years, and you could see where there's that uptick going into 21. Overall, during that time, the borough budget has increased by 37% over these past 10 years. So that averages out to about 3.33% a year, and the tax reliance on tax revenue has been keeping pace with that. And then I believe this is my last slide before I think Tom and Chad jump in. We thought this was an interesting slide to share. When you look at the valuation, meaning if you add up every single block and lot structure, it has an assessed value. Well, for us, 84% of that assessed value comes from residential properties. The rest comes from farms, commercial properties, industrial, apartments. It isn't actually zero, it's 0.4%, and vacant land. So you might look at that and say, boy, we're very dependent on residential valuations. And while that's true, over the past couple of weeks, as we've been prepping for discussions with Moody's to get a new bond rating, one thing that has become clear is how valued it is that we have a diversity of housing markets within our market. So you have, some starter homes, you have homes for, different spectrum of the economic scale, and that adds diversity. So to look at this pie, you would say, well, you're not really diverse at all, but in fact, it doesn't tell the whole story. And I will turn this over now to, is it Chad, are you going, or?
I think it's Tom.
Tom?
Yeah, so during the finance committee discussions, we wanted to talk to the public about what the council is doing to support the borough, but also control spending. So obviously we're managing the budget over time, and that takes discipline. Managing the top line is part of what feeds into a tax rate. So managing the expenses is what we're always focused on doing. But not just managing the expenses in a whole, but looking at the borough expenses on a line by line item basis, prioritizing all those services that are most valued by the community, but then also, looking to be as efficient as possible. And I think going forward, we're talking about doing even more of that with the new administration in place now, tasking them with going through each of the departments and looking for efficiencies, further efficiencies that we can find. The execution of a long-term debt reduction plan is also something that we've been managing for a number of years and continue to do going forward. And obviously trying to balance that with, appropriate borrowing at attractive rates when it's available. Managing this strategically also with an eye towards not having large upswings or dips overall, which makes it hard for people to plan financially, but to try and just maintain a slow and steady pace for everything, and keeping the strong financial position of the borough that we're in now, but also make sure that we maintain that going forward as well. Focused spending, we want to make sure that we do invest in things that matter to people, that the things that people feel and see each day, things like recreation, our downtown related services, things that help underpin our real estate market. So those focused spending, there's things that we look at doing to try and manage the desires of everybody and try and address the needs of the borough, such as downtown development and redevelopment. All of this obviously is a balancing act between, property tax revenue and the revenue on our spending, and then also managing our expenses and also looking for new revenue sources. So we're actively talking about how we can do those things going forward as well. So those are the things that the council is doing now and plan to do in the future as far as controlling spending and supporting the borough. Were we going to hand off here, Chad, or?
No, I think you're going to do that one too, Tom.
Okay, so just reiterate, the tax rate's likely to stay flat or perhaps even go slightly down this year. We won't know that, as Tom Szerzikny mentioned, we won't know that until we get the county and school numbers. But this will be for the first time that this has happened in a number of years. It's due to both us managing the top line well, but also the good news as far as the valuations are concerned. We continue to manage the expenses. We call them appropriations. So you might hear in other presentations, sometimes we use those words interchangeably, expenses and appropriations, to less than 3%. And that better positions us to meet our obligations in the future. We've got a strong credit score currently from Moody's, and we're currently being reevaluated for this year as well. So we'll make that information available as soon as we have it. We expect to see additional good news and valuations, or certainly hope to see additional good news and valuations. And as we increase the desirability of Bernardsville, our redevelopment plans are implemented, and as the economy recovers from the pandemic. So we're hoping that this is the beginning of some more good news, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to cover that in the future.
So to transition from Tom, I think a really important point that we'd like the public to know as we introduce the budget and as the details become obvious over the next coming weeks, this year's budget is essentially remaining at pre-pandemic levels. Obviously, last year brought on its set of challenges on both the revenue and expense line that were managed well. But approximately this year, see about a 1% increase from 2019 to 2021. So that's a span of 2 years. However, I think Tom C showed the slide earlier about, the valuation of the borough remaining relatively flat. As everyone's aware in the public, the cost of everything has gone up, and it continues to go up. And so we're maintaining this top line or this bottom line expense line while our fixed costs are changing faster than the pace of inflation. Next slide. Know that we looked at everything. From virtually every department, I think, saw a reduction this year with only a few that actually went up. And in most of those circumstances, it was due to something that was a fixed cost. We went across the budget line with a fine-tooth comb, and we tried to be efficient where we could. Next slide. John, I'll transition over to you to talk about where we're going to invest this year.
You know what? Could you cover this? Because I've got a really bad internet connection and I'm missing about.
Sure. So on the right side, you see the dam. There's going to be a lot of discussion about the dam as we go through the next weeks and months. But just know a lot of our capital program is ultimately going to go to that resolution. But we also wanted to focus on things that were in some ways forgotten about or not addressed before because we had to get to this point, like the police and the fire, the library and the roof. So there are places where we're investing. We're also going to start putting the money to good use that passed the referendum last year to the open space fund once that project is complete. This is just a map of our roads and the road plan. The borough will continue to see improvements in our roads as we go throughout the next 12 and 24 months. And we have a plan to get there.
Yeah, Chad, I'd just like to add for people's, I was impressed when I first saw this map. The green roads are the roads that were paved from from proceeds from the $10 million road referendum. And the pink ones are ones that are also from the road referendum, but are being paved this year.
Do you want to talk about the debt reduction plan, Tom?
So this is a slide that was put together by our CFO, and it shows that the every borough, depending on the size of the borough and the size of the budget, has a debt ceiling that's set by the state of New Jersey. That's the blue, the larger bars up here. So you can see that our debt, the green bars at the bottom, is much below the limit. Of course, that's good. We don't want to go close to the limit, but at the same time, over the long term, and this is why we keep talking about the long-term debt reduction plan, we also see that we're on the correct downward trajectory. So if we continue to manage as we are now, we don't see a problem over the longer term paying off the debt, as long as we continue to manage our expenses and also continue with the plan that we have in place for borrowing. Now, we could always pay debt off faster, but we also are trying to balance that with the desire to keep the tax increases as small or non-existent if possible. So, right now the long-term horizon looks good, and as a result, we think it's a responsible plan. Shall I just wrap this up then?
Yeah, go ahead and wrap it up, Tom.
Okay, so the full 2021 budget will be presented in 4 weeks on April 26th of 2021. At that time, we'll bring some more information for folks and probably some more detailed slides. The Borough Council members have all reviewed the draft, and we have demonstrated the ability to control spending and come out of this pandemic, which obviously is providing stress on a lot of people's financials. Our debt plan will provide for rational and stable value-adding investments going forward, while also managing it in a way that doesn't put us too far behind in being able to pay off the debt. So the council is going to prioritize our spending. We've talked about this on a number of slides already, but I wanted this to be one of the takeaway points. We're going to prioritize spending and investments on downtown development, on roads, recreation, and other tangible benefits to the community. So we're trying to balance both the tax level and anything that we're cutting with those things that we also feel we need to invest in.
And Tom, if I can just add to that last point, look, this is hard. Cuts are never easy. I think where we've tried to control expenses, and I think that's more of the right word than saying cuts in most circumstances. We've been trying to do it in a way to really thread this needle in many ways. So it's a credit to Tom and John and Tom C that we're getting this done.
Yeah, and I'd like to recognize the mayor, who was on our finance committee for 2 years prior to Chad joining this October, and also Leslie Roberson, who's been doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of all the data gathering and her involvement for multiple years up till now too.
Thank you. That was really a great presentation. And again, thank you, Finance Committee, for all that you put into this. It really was a challenging year, and you rose to that challenge. We will have, and Anthony, I think, or somebody tell me if we have to publish this as well, right? So the budget will be published in the paper so that people have a chance to really look at the details before the public hearing.
It'll be on the website too.
Okay. So we give the,
Will the slide presentation be available on the website?
Sure.
And?
Yes.
We can make it. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, I just want to reiterate what you said, Mayor. I mean, if somebody had told us, the council, 6 months ago, that this is the plan we'd be able to come up with, I think we'd all be skeptical. So it's been quite a journey, and I think the result is really positive. I don't, maybe people don't recognize the amount of work that went into this, and so I think our hats are collectively off to the committee. Can I make one just little point? Councilman O'Day said that our taxes would be flat, but of course we don't know what the county and the school is going to do. It's probably worth mentioning to reiterate. Most people might know it, but some may not. That the municipal taxes only account for about 25% of your property taxes. The county and the schools take up the bulk of it. So at least we're doing our part to keep things flat.
We have a pretty slide for that.
Yeah,
when,
that'll,
In 2
we get
weeks.
to the hearing.
Yes.
a nice visual, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. You want to take down your sharing,
Sure.
and we are up to, mayor's report. Okay, mayor.
We need to
Oh, introduction. Okay.
do a
so,
motion, yeah.
somebody to move 2177.
I move resolution 2177.
You have a second?
I will second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Zamara,
Yes.
Mr. O'Day,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
Okay, and just to note, the public hearing on this is on April 26th, so it's not the next meeting because we have to allow 30 days or whatever, isn't it? So just so the public, the 26th is the day of the public hearing. All right, now the mayor's update. Okay, March 9th, I attended a webinar on community engagement, the key to a successful dam removal, which I think Dr. Hammond, you were on as well, which was just some interesting information on the choices and ways to do things. I also attended a webinar on making communities livable for people of all ages that AARP put on, and we're looking at, they have a community grant that we're looking at some projects to submit for that. March 10th was the Somerset County Governing Officials Association meeting. I think, Christine, you were there, yes?
It was excellent because we saw the presentation by the sheriff and the K9 unit, which is amazing, the work that they do.
I know, it's just fascinating what they can train dogs to detect.
It was amazing.
Yeah. We also had the downtown Bernardsville town meeting, which I believe Gina and Christine both attended. And I think there was at least 45 members of the public that attended. It was a Facebook as well as a Zoom meeting. And really what Olivia went over was the Main Street presentation, similar to what the council heard at the last meeting. March 11th, I attended a seminar on the changing landscape of New Jersey's clean energy programs. And what the public utilities is doing is they're closing down the SREC incentive for solar, which is solar renewable energy credit. And it's going to be now TREC, which will be transition renewable energy credit. They didn't have a date for when they're making that transition, but it will be coming soon. They've also started a community solar pilot program, which is being piloted in Perth Amboy. They're putting solar on a bunch of warehouses there. And what happens is the project is developed within the community, delivered to the grid, and then I guess the residents and businesses buy a solar subscription. They've been offering, the BPU has been offering a $5,000 incentive for purchasing or leasing an electric vehicle. That pot of money has already been spent for year one, so it's been a popular program. Their goal is to have 85% of vehicles to be electric by 2040. And they're also providing some incentives to have our fleet be electric. And I think there's grants for chargers as well. March 15th, I attended a webinar from Congressman Malinowski, his briefing on the American Rescue Bill, which I think I shared with the council people, the highlights of that. We had our initial meeting for the Sustainable Jersey Energy Initiatives, and I think the key takeaway with that was they are going to help us in identifying where our charges are coming from, and they're going to have us enroll in the Energy Star portfolio system to really help us track exactly where that energy is coming and going. We had a Cultural Arts Committee meeting on the 17th, and we have rescheduled the trivia night for April 13th from 7 to 8. We were going to do it last month, but I believe the library did one last month, so we didn't want to conflict with them. Mr. T from the school district will be entertaining during the breaks. He's also, we're working with him on doing an outdoor concert sometime,
Cool.
when the weather's nicer. So, and they were great. I think in Sunday Star Ledger and Sunday Courier both had articles about the mural. And the Ledger had a half-page picture of the mural. So it was really a lot of good publicity. March 18th, I attended the cannabis law update by the League of Municipalities, and I shared that PowerPoint with the council as well, which just went over all the different classifications and what we have to do if we want to opt in or opt out. On the county call last week, the J&J vaccines they received were prioritized for homeless, senior housing, and jail population, as well as municipalities that have a low vaccination rate. And they also mentioned that teachers have priority at the drugstores, CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens through the end of the month. There's been a decline in testing, and they said the county call system is working well as finally the state call system. So those are both up and running well. Somerset County is still 5th in the state for vaccinations. 34.2% of the population have had their first shot. I attended another webinar on reducing the climate footprint of New Jersey residents that was given by Rutgers. And this I thought was interesting. They said 1 hour of Netflix uses 6.1 kilowatts, which is enough to drive a Tesla Model S19 19 miles or power an LED bulb continuously for 3 months. That's 1 hour of Netflix. And they said a gaming console uses 10 to 11 billion kilowatt hours a year. So they have a whole portfolio, the njcleanenergy.com, of programs that are available for residents. So I will be putting that information in my next newsletter, and maybe we can also get some of the links on the website, because there's a lot of programs to help residents lower their use of electricity. And then Saturday was the Shamrock Shuffle that St. Elizabeth's did. It was a limited 5K race, super well organized. And I have to say kudos to the police department. They did an amazing job of keeping everything running smoothly. So thank you, Chief, for your support of that. The update today on A1517 was canceled, which I think is a good thing because there's been no movement on that bill. And lastly, Dr. Hammond will be doing another one of his vaccine programs through the Bernardsville, they changed their name now. It was Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group. Which I think is a great idea to try and reach more of the of our language challenge communities. And I think Pastor Dan is going to be helping with that. So I think that's a great idea. So when is that, Jeff?
That's Wednesday night, and that's going to be a Spanish language presentation.
Great. So, we'll get that out. So that was my report. I believe it is now Tom C's turn.
Sure. Just a few things from me. On Friday, this coming Friday, we have a follow-up call with the Moody's representative that's looking at our bond rating. So we hope to have some information then. It's not certain, but if we do, we'll be sure to share it with council. I'd like to recognize the work that Jeff Price and his team were doing in support of downtown Bernardsville. The report that they had to prepare, they had obviously had all the information, but they had to go do some data mining. But it sets up a really, really good and useful metric for tracking the redevelopment of downtown. It identifies buildings by age, vacancy rates. There's a lot of good information that we can now start tracking. And I don't recall seeing that since I've been here. So it's a good tool to have that we can keep monitoring as we move
Tom,
forward.
is that something you could share, or is it understandable just to share it with council? I'd be interested in reading it as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's in draft form, but good enough to share.
Yep.
Just in case you weren't counting, in February, our Public Works Department dealt with 7 snowstorms. So we are organizing a thank you pizza party for them in the coming weeks. Well, they pivoted from road plowing to road repair, and at the same time working very diligently to prepare our recreational facilities for the coming season. I was visiting the guys painting the Claremont Field House. We have a real painter coming in, but they were replacing like some of the rotted boards and doing all the work in there. Keep an eye out for that because I think it's going to look sharp when it's done. And then I just wanted to share one last thing with respect to the police department and recognize the work that Chief Valentine did. In your packet, there was a letter dated February 10th from the New Jersey Law Enforcement Accreditation Program. There's different types of accreditation, but this particular one is if this agency accreditates you according to the Presidential Executive Order on Safe Policing and Safe Communities. If you're accredited with respect to your use of force standards, you qualify for a pool of grants that you otherwise would not have qualified for. So just if you please bear with me, I'd just like to read the last paragraph in this letter addressed to the chief. It says, following our reviews, we have determined that the Bernardsville Police Department meets the conditions for certification. Accordingly, NJSACOP LEAP will include your agency going forward within our database of certified law enforcement agencies. So that was impressive.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And it also speaks to the flag council told us to get with respect to diversity and inclusion and those important initiatives. And this opens more resources for us to take that even further. And that wraps up my report.
Thank you. So you covered all of those. We'll go to committee reports, public safety. Oh, we have to, I'm sorry, we have to accept the reports. You changed this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I need a motion to accept the monthly reports.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we accepted the reports. So now, public safety.
We haven't met since the last time, actually.
Yeah, I don't think you have. Okay, so we don't have one. Except we
Mayor,
do-
it's the chief. Can I just say something briefly on public safety?
Yeah.
So I don't know, in your package, your council package, I think you'll notice there's some monthly reports that were issued. There's a new format that we put the reports in this year, and we're still tweaking some of the finer aspects of it, but I hope that you find it useful and more user-friendly as you go through the activities of the police department on a monthly basis. We tried to break it down by some of the main things that we accomplished to be able to allow you to see some of the things that are going on and some of the things that we're doing. The other thing that is in your monthly report this year is our annual report that we distributed. There was a lot of work and effort that went into that. It's the 2020 annual report for the police department, and it just outlines a lot of the activities and the accomplishments that we were able to accomplish throughout the year. Even though we were in the middle of a pandemic, there was still a lot of good policing being done and a lot of effort on the time and on the part of the officers. So just wanted to point that out to you and let you know that that information is there. And if you have any questions about anything, there's traffic updates in there about some of the traffic projects that are going on, the things that we're working on. Our community policing activities are listed there. Some of the training that the officers all have attended is all there as well for you to see. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Mayor, may I jump in as well on that? It's a very well done report and it's available on our website. And I would encourage our residents to take a look at what we're able to do with our crew.
I'll second that. I did look through it and I was amazed at how many programs you do that, I think a lot of the public isn't even aware of. And the amount of training that our officers have to take was very impressive. So, yeah, I encourage you to read that report because there's really a lot of good information in there. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Finance Committee, I don't think you want to say another word, do you?
I think we're presenting the budget and the full budget, or this is the draft budget or the introduction of the budget. Then the budget will be voted on April 26th, as the mayor previously said.
Yeah, and thank you again. Personnel, did we have any?
Yeah, real quickly, we met last, I think it was in the beginning of March 3rd to be exact. To be brief, we have, or I should say our business administrator is undergoing a well, maybe I shouldn't say reorganization, but he's putting together a table of organization to kind of see where things are within the borough. And as part of that, there's a personnel project where he's meeting with all the department heads. And I think as well already alluded to in one of the finance reports, we're determining where the tax dollars go as an example of that. We had asked the council members who were on the committee had asked him to make a presentation to the public about tax dollars, and you heard part of that already, but also to in advance of our redevelopment efforts to talk about the ABC of redevelopment and redevelopment economics because of his experience in that area. We undergoing, or at least we initiated, I guess I should say, the diversity and inclusion training that had been part of our last year's resolution. That's actually already commenced and people are signing up and I think it's going smoothly. I think that and what we just heard about from the police report, the public safety report, I think we could probably say that arguably that we're the most proactive community in this regard in the county. That's something to be proud of. And that is the Personnel Committee report.
Thank you. Anthony, can I know you had mentioned to me when I was in the office that besides the people who are, or we said it was mandatory for the training for inclusion and diversity, you had mentioned you had quite a few people sign up that was voluntary, yes?
Yes, a lot. We had 20 people already sign up who were voluntary, and emails have gone out to even more than that. And they're coming in every day or so. So we've had a lot of people sign up, even who were not mandatory to take that. Yes.
I think that's commendable, that they want to take it, that are people that are volunteers. So that's terrific. Public Works.
Yes, so we did meet. A lot of the discussion was on the dam and just talking about dates and things, and we're trying to get, because the New Jersey Transit owns part of this property as well, so it's adding a little bit more complexity there too. But Doug is working with Johanna and with Christy McDonald as well to try to arrange some in-person meetings to gain more information and knowledge about the dam itself, and what we should do and which direction we should go as far as keeping it the way that it is, or letting it go. So that there's lots of work, time and effort that's being put into this. So I appreciate everybody's time that they're spending here as well. Talked about the Polo Grounds walking path. So we got the information back from the NJDEP about what they're requiring from the wetlands perspective. And Doug is working with Bob Markovic as well on how we move forward here. So we're going to go back to engineering and ask them to complete some updates to the drawings themselves, and then put the bid spec together so that we can go back out. I think that those are the main points from the PW meeting. I don't know, Christine, Jeff, is there anything else that was sticking out for you that you wanted to mention that I didn't? That's.
Well, some members of the public or whoever may have noticed that the area where the mural is going to go, that repairs were done to that sidewalk. So that was one of the good things that we talked about. And just work that's being done on the library. And as Tom mentioned, there's work being done on the Claremont Clubhouse, which is good. So we had a concern about having indoor space for recreations. So that's one of the solutions that our team came up with, which is great.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to your report, Gina. That was good.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the sidewalk looks so much better over the bridge there. To thank Doug Walker for putting pressure on to make sure it got done. Land Use Committee, we are having a special council meeting on April 14th. It's a Wednesday night, when the developers who submitted proposals for the old Audi dealership and the 2 Quimby Lane will do a presentation, just an overview of what their proposals include, so that the public has an opportunity to see what those proposals look like. The council, we won't be making any decisions that night or anything. It's just an opportunity for the community to have a chance to see what kind of proposals we've received. So I encourage the public to come out that night, and I think we're all excited to see what they're going to present. So I don't know, Tom C., did you want to add anything about that meeting?
Yeah, so the, well, two points. One is that also want them to establish their credentials and their qualifications by experience and training and the team that they would bring forward. So we want to get a sense of the depth of that. Mayor and council wanted to be very transparent throughout the whole process. So there have been, the analysis right now that's going on of what was submitted was very preliminary. It's at the professional level, has not bubbled up into policy yet. So we're getting there, but right now we just want the public to see who has submitted and establish their qualifications. And as the mayor said, it's important that we not negotiate in public, because it's not a negotiation session. That'll come later.
Okay, thank you. Housing and zoning. Again, I want to follow up on what Tom said, is that the amount of work that Jeff did to put together for our Main Street application was phenomenal. I was in his office today, and they had these huge maps and everything coded and marked out with so much information about how much is vacant, what's residential, what's commercial, what's combination. It is just an amazing amount of data that they put together in a very short amount of time. So, and they're also working with the tax assessor because we needed information from him as well. And he's coordinating all that. So thank you, Jeff, and your team for a amazing job. I don't know if I thought he was here.
He's there.
Yes, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
He's here.
There you are.
You're welcome.
You have anything to add for your report, or you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. If you're okay, yes.
Excellent. Thank you again.
All right.
All right, items of business. We have a request. I think you had a memo from Galloway and Crane. The two owners of Galloway and Crane live in town.
Do we do liaison reports this week, this month?
Things. I'm sorry. Yeah, liaison reports.
Where do you want to start, Mayor?
I'm trying to get through this,
I'll start with
I'm older now, so
Still celebrating.
there you go, right?
Go ahead.
Planning board, Mayor. So we met on March 11th. There was an oldie but goodie, which was the part of the business. We spent several hours reviewing the stormwater regulations that we said we were going to bring back to the committee. The committee was able to come to some pretty good resolutions and I believe some preliminary conclusions. However, before we moved it on to council, it was our wish to socialize that with other related committees. So I fully expect that those recommendations be back before this committee within the month. But it was a very effective meeting, and I think we resolved a lot of the lack of places where there were lack of clarity.
Who are you submitting? What other committees are going to review it?
It was not definitively. They talked about obviously the environmental committee and possibly one other, but the environmental committee was definitely one of them.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have committee reports?
Shade Tree met, but I was obviously, because this is my work usually, so I can punt to Johanna if she's got anything to report from that.
Sure. We tweaked two letters. One is to the tree companies that work in our town, apprising them that we have an ordinance and to kind of gently suggest that they have responsibility to inform their clients if their clients do not know about our ordinance. And also we're tweaked a letter to the residents. We gave those of us who are on liaisons there gave some reports. I'll let Jeff give the EC one, but Ed English, the hunting season is over. COVID did reduce the number of hunters. Some of them were sick, but it was a successful season. And he spoke of some good relationships between the hunters in the town and the residents. So it was a nice report. That's it.
Johanna, since I hear your voice, one of the things that did come out of the planning board, because you had offered this when you were in front of us the prior meeting, we would like to take the environmental committee up on creating an informational brochure about the importance of stormwater management and how to maintain the stormwater systems. And I think Graham was going to bring that back to your committee.
Okay, good.
Well, I'll go ahead and do the EC if that's okay, Mayor.
Yes.
So it seemed like a normal segue right there. So the Environmental Commission met on March 10, and it's been pretty busy. And I think, Mayor, as you alluded to with some of your report about some of the webinars and Zoom calls that you've been on, there seems to be a webinar or a Zoom call related to either stormwater, dams, well water, plastics, once or twice a week. There's the e-vehicles. I think I'd probably go on to 6 or 10 a month now. It's just, there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of activity in this regard. Having said that, when the EC met on March 10th, there was some discussion about goals and objectives for the year. We put together a dashboard. We've also updated, by the way, our webpage, and thank you to Rob Wilson for that. And I invite people to go to the Environmental Commission webpage. There's some valuable information there about everything ranging from rain gardens to what our native plants are here in the area. Having said that, we are looking to, as a goal, to make well testing a little easier and affordable. We're looking at strategies that would promote green approaches to stormwater management. We are working on a liaison with the Somerset Hills School District that would work with some of the students, that they could collaborate with some of our projects and they get credit for that. We are looking at increasing the diversity on the Environmental Commission. We do have some room for advisors, and we hope to attract some of residents from other areas of our community to join us. There was an interesting project underway that I think is worth mentioning. We've undertaken a survey of all our local restaurants to ascertain what they're doing for takeout packaging, since with COVID there's such a huge increase in takeout. We are, through a small amount of grant funding, been able to provide them with some samples, alternative samples, green samples, if they happen to be currently using styrofoam, and we're informing them of the styrofoam ban. So I'll have some more specific numbers. We haven't covered all the restaurants, but we've had a pretty good response in the beginning part of this community survey. There was a plan to extend the 2020 Woodland Garden, and I'll let that's going to come up on as an agenda item later on, so I'll leave it at that. And then finally, just to wrap up, we do have our eye on some grant proposals coming up for later this year, and would come back to the council with some proposals related to either electric vehicle charging stations or rain garden programs.
Thank you. Anybody else have committee reports?
The Board of Health met. I just want to say what an amazing job Bernards Township is doing on our behalf. They're doing a lot of work, and they support many other boroughs and towns too, but they're doing a really outstanding job. So I just wanted to say thank you to them. Nothing of major else to report from Board of Health meeting.
Okay, yeah, they've been doing a lot of testing too. There's been a lot of sites they've been setting up around. So, and I think they're getting set up as well to do vaccinations if they could ever get a supply. But I know they've put all the steps in motion to be able.
Actually, I think they've been approved. They just haven't been able to get a supply.
Yeah, which will really be convenient for residents. So, okay, we get all the liaison reports. Yes. All right, now we'll go on to our items of business. 10A. We had a request from Galloway and Crane Funeral Home to put a sign on Olcott Square. They're doing a car show in their lot in Basking Ridge, but it's a fundraiser for Heartworks. And, you know, both the owners of Galloway and Crane live in Bernardsville. They're Bernardsville residents. They did have another location in Bernardsville, which is now the hub for community in crisis. And according to the zoning for putting signs there, it says Bernardsville resident. You have to be the Bernardsville. I think, Jeff, does it say resident or business?
Well, it says that the activity has to be in the borough.
Ah, that was it. So the activity is not going to be in the borough. It's in Basking Ridge, but it's done by borough residents. And actually, the Heartworks director lives in Bernardsville. And Heartworks serves Bernardsville as well as Basking Ridge and surrounding areas. So the suggestion was, since it's not, approvable by Jeff, that they come to the council with the request to put a sign in Olcott Square for the car show. So
I'm fine with it.
I think it's in spirit.
The only question I have, I don't object to it. I think it's a good idea, and there's a lot of back and forth between our communities. My only question is they want to put it up for 30 days in advance of the event. Is that consistent with our sign ordinance?
Our sign ordinance, I believe, says 2 weeks, doesn't it, Jeff?
That's correct.
Yeah, so we would have to limit that.
Okay.
I think if we limit it to 2 weeks, I think it's consistent with the spirit of our ordinance.
Okay, everybody good with that? Then we will communicate to them that, yes, we approve it, but for 2 weeks before the event.
Good.
And it's nice of them to ask, because I think a lot of people just put their signs up and don't ask.
Yes, they do.
Uh-huh. Okay, next was the class of 2020 garden. Carrie, would you like to?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give the council an update and let you know some things that have been running through my mind and through Rosalie Ballantyne's mind. As a matter of fact, I was riding a bike and thinking as I went by the 2020 garden where the daffodils are coming up. We're going to have hopefully a long bloom time because we've got a lot of variety in there among our daffs. But I thought, geez, we've got our 2020 garden, but unfortunately the pandemic has involved another class, and it was exactly a year ago or even slightly less that I came to talk to you guys the first time about this garden idea. And we felt like we wanted to come to you, give you an update and say, what do you think about including the class of 2021 in this garden, possibly through another sign, although that would take away money from the plants that we're trying to put in, but just to pick your brains and see what we could possibly do if you think it's a good idea to recognize that another graduating class is coming up and has been impacted basically for the entire year, as has every student in our school, every parent, every resident, everybody. And just see if we could generate some ideas about what we could do to include this second class and hopefully final class. Please may that be the case, so that we can not have people feel excluded when they go by the garden in such a prominent location.
Thank you, Carrie. How much more would it be to change the sign? Just curious.
The sign that we have right now says this woodland garden has been planted in honor of the class of 2020 by the Bernardsville Environmental Commission. To add another sign of that that just said something about 2021, and I'd be open to your ideas about what that might say, would probably be about as much as it was, which was about $130 to add a sign of that size. And maybe adding a sign would speak to without many words, would speak to the extension of the pandemic beyond anyone's wildest nightmares.
As I recall, the plan for the garden sort of had phases, didn't it?
Correct. We wouldn't be changing we've been approved only for that nose area, we've called it, right at the first tree, and we aren't proposing at this point to go beyond the current planting area, but we just didn't want to have the class of 21 not included without your say. So we want to always make sure that council is involved in any decision, because of course it is borough land and we're not going to move beyond what we've been allocated and allowed to do. We just
I didn't know if perhaps the second phase could be, in honor of the class of 2021. I don't know how.
That's a good point.
They are, or whether or not the rest of the council will be supportive of that idea, whether or not you have the funding to do phase 1 and phase 2 in a timely manner.
Right.
Those questions, but if it's appropriate and possible, maybe the first phase is 2021 and the second phase is 2020 and then 2021.
Yeah, I get your drift. That's a good point. We could hold off on that. Our plan for this spring is to add some native perennials on top of the daffodils. So we're going to be moving forward with that. We did do a little bit of fundraising at the farmers market this past Saturday. We got $340 from attendees. Interestingly, a lot of the people who came to talk to us were most interested in the native species and pollinator aspect of the garden, which was a surprise to us. We thought they'd be more focused on this class or that class in the 2020 issue of the pandemic. But there was a lot of excitement about having a new garden in town, and particularly about it supporting the bees, which was nice.
What if we did the sign this year with the plan towards moving the sign to the phase 2 section when the phase 2 gets it done?
So Jack, does the sign fall within the, what is it, 5 to 10% variance that we allow?
If it's $130, we're okay.
So I'd be willing to say, look, it'll fall within the variance. You can go forward without it having to come back for separate approval.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, that you might want to, otherwise we might be talking about the sign again.
Yeah.
Regardless of when we decide to put it up.
Yep. So I say go forward with it, and it'll, if you stay true to your budget, it should fall within the standard variance that we allow.
Okay, thank you. Good thought.
And then, look, I'd like to see the phase 2 as well. And I agree with Councilman O'Day that this would be a nice thing to move to that second phase.
Very good, very good. It's okay, though, to plant the spring planting in the area that we've already been approved for over the nose, correct, Council?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yep.
Okay, and we're fundraising for that now. And we'll be back at the farmer's market on Saturday, and hopefully there'll be some new folks. We don't want to hit people up twice, but it was great to have a chance to be down there, so thank you.
Yeah, that was a great idea.
And as far as wording on the sign, you leave it to our studied discretion? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
So maybe if I just throw out this Saturday is our final winter market, so come on down and get your last provisions and pickles and bread and all that, but also then make your donation to the Environmental Commission.
I
Thanks,
think
Jeff.
also, aren't they also doing a drawing of some kind where you could win coupons for this summer? I think there's some kind of drawing, because I have to go down and pick the numbers. So
Then it's certainly true.
so it's, make sure you get there this Saturday.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Carrie. And thanks for making another beautiful garden. You guys are impressive with how much you could accomplish, really.
Thank you. We're excited about it.
Yeah. The Pine Ridge electrical transformer rotation. Jack, do you want to give us a little background on that? Did that
Well,
come?
my knowledge is limited to what I've read, but from reading the materials, it sounds like it is a borough responsibility because the borough developed the property, and therefore, since it has to be moved or relocated, I believe the borough probably should assume the cost, and we could certainly pay for that out of our Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Yeah, and for those that aren't from, the Pine Ridge development was our very first affordable housing development, which at that time, the borough opted to build their own rather than go with builder's remedy. It was the same time that the Hills got built. And so the borough decided rather than have that kind of a development, we would do our own. So it was on borough property.
Yeah, I guess we just have to rotate the transformers as opposed to actually relocating them, which was John McDowell's solution.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What are you?
Oh, yeah, the transformers just have to be rotated as opposed to relocated, which was John McDowell's solution to the issue.
Which was less expensive.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking about $6,300.
So what do you need from the borough, from the council?
I think just at this point in time, just a motion agreeing to it. We may have to do an ordinance later appropriating the money, but I think at this point, just a resolution, or a motion, I'm sorry.
Do they have a homeowners association there?
Yes, they do.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve?
There's a resolution, there's actually a resolution in the packet, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So it will be 21-78 at this point. So yeah, there's a motion to approve that.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
2178, okay, so do I have a motion
78. No.
to approve 2178? I don't see that.
I move to approve resolution 2178.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Ms. McCready,
Yes.
Mr. McQueen,
Yes.
Mr. O'Day,
Yes.
Ms. Zamara.
Yes.
Okay, we're back to the alarm system ordinance, and I believe the chief made the changes based on our discussion from the last meeting.
Yes, you approved most of the substance of the ordinance at the last meeting. However, since then, the chief raised several issues which I think need to be answered. We put in there an exemption for all borough properties. Do you want to have any other exemptions? The second question is the effective date of the ordinance. The third issue, and the chief is here, he'll elaborate, was whether there should be a grace period for people who already have alarms to register under the new requirements.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the chief recommends, but I think a grace period is appropriate. I would suggest 6 months.
So
What is the regular time for a new one? Does it say?
well, you have 30 days
Okay,
to register your alarm. If you were to get a violation and you didn't register it, we would give you 30 days to register the alarm.
okay.
But where I wanted to start was if we could pick an effective date of the ordinance
Right.
and then work out from there. You know, we really thought that if we gave like a 30 or 60-day period of time for people to register their ordinance with no fee, and then after that period of time, we would start to charge the fee for any subsequent registrations that come in.
Sure.
And then anybody who would get an alarm notice or a violation in that time period after that, who hasn't registered their alarm, would be given 30 days to register the alarm. We wouldn't just hit them with a violation, but they would get the notice of the alarm. And then after 3 false alarms, they would start to accumulate some fees associated with that. So, you know, to simplify it, if we could come up with a hypothetical date as to when we wanted to start, how many days we wanted to give existing residents and businesses time to register. And then after that, if they didn't do it, you know, they would be in violation. And then if we had a violation, we would give them, you know, an additional 30 days to do it after the notice. But they would really have about 60 days to register their alarms. Something like that is what we were thinking.
Okay. So how about May 1st? For effective date?
We could certainly do, I was thinking more like June 1st, only so we could have more time to publicize it and make sure that we get the information out to everybody and they all understand it. You know, they could certainly start to register the alarms as soon as we have the, you know, information in the forms put together. We still have some internal work to do as far as, you know, drafting all the forms that we want to use and setting it up into the computer, into our software. So, you know, I think if we could do June 1st, I think would be more realistic for the effective date. And then I know the borough sends out notices in July. There's mailers that go out, and then that way everybody in town, we could put something in that mailer that goes out in July, and that would be within that 30-day, maybe that 30-day time period or close to it, or 60 days, whatever you decide.
And Chad, you had suggested 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of in line, you know, because there's going to have to be an awareness campaign that goes along with this. So I think the chief is accounting for that. Because as we know, that the entire community doesn't sit here and watch our lovely faces at night on these Monday night calls. So we need to make sure we communicate appropriately and give everybody the time to comply.
So December 31st?
No, I think the chief was right. You know, make it summer, like early summer, and then there's a grace period where you can do it for free, and then you start charging. I think that's the right way to do it.
But 6 months would be the end of December if they.
I think he rolled back on that, Mayor. So
Yeah.
you would have April and May.
Yep.
It would become effective in June. Then you would have an official grace period of,
Till September, maybe?
well, no, I don't know if we need to go that far. I mean, we're giving them 2 months up
Yeah, a
front.
lot of people are away.
We'll be publicizing it. We'll get the information out. And then, if you give them, if you say June 1st, if you give them 30 days or 60 days, you tell me what you would like to give them. And then at the end of that period, we would start, charging for the violations for the non-registration. But once the ordinance becomes effective, we will start to count the alarms for purposes of the false alarm fees. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I would give them till the end of September, just because people travel in the summer and sometimes mail gets held up and, it gets,
So so they'll have until the end of September
Yeah.
to register their alarms. However,
That's with no fee, Chief?
However, the ordinance would become effective on June 1st. So we would start counting the alarms for purposes of the false alarm enforcement.
mm,
Does that make sense?
right, but they can
Yeah.
register up to September 30th with no fee. After that, there'll be some kind of fee.
No registration fee.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, we can work with that, I think. Jack, do we need to come back with another draft before they?
No, I think we can introduce it tonight. We would just add to the end of section 3-6.3 that the fee will be waived through September 30, 2021. And in section 4 of the ordinance itself, the ordinance shall become effective on June 1, 2021. I think with those insertions, it can be introduced tonight, and then I will submit the typed up ordinance to Anthony in the morning.
Okay, that sounds good. And I don't know, does anybody have any other group they think should be exempt other than borough property? I can't imagine what, but
I have a question or just something to confirm about the registration fee. Did we decide on it being a one-time and not annual?
Yes, one time $50, I believe.
Right.
yes, it says $50.
And then the false alarm, you do not start charging or issuing any type of summons until the 4th alarm, right?
Yes,
That's correct.
Correct. They get a notice, but they don't get any
Right.
fees associated.
The notice would say, this is your second, and on the 4th, you're gonna get charged,
Yeah.
right?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, something along that line,
4
yes.
strikes and you're out.
Jack, was there anything else, or that was?
No, I think
covered
those are all the
everything.
questions you had, Chief.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Thank
All
you.
right. Do I have a motion to introduce, what is the number of this ordinance?
1877.
1877, 21,
I'll do it, 'cause I'm on the,
21,
I guess.
1877, go ahead.
Mayor,
Yes,
Chief Glenn Miller has his hand up. Do you wanna,
on the alarms,
maybe?
do you want to talk about the alarms, Glenn?
I just want everyone to be aware that fire is going to have to come behind once this ordinance is passed. Jack and I have to get together so that the fees and the processes all match between fire and police. The registration is doing both fire and police, but the fee structure and the fine structure is different and held in a different place in our borough ordinances. So as soon as we get through the police ordinance, we'll make the fire match. But I just
Okay.
wanted everyone to be aware that we are going to have to pass a separate resolution on that once we get through this process.
Yeah, I'll be happy to work it out with you, Glenn.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Glenn. Okay, did somebody move this?
I think John was going.
No, I was going to, but then Glenn had the questions. I moved that ordinance 2021-1877 concerning alarm systems and supplementing Chapter 3 of the Borough Code entitled Police Regulations be introduced. Hang on. And passed on first reading, published according to law, and the public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning 7 p.m. Monday, April 12th. I guess, Jack, I should say as amended.
No, because we're introducing it tonight, so as revised. During
As
the
revised.
discussion, with the changes we discussed.
I'll
As
second it.
revised with the changes discussed.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay,
Abstention?
thanks.
Good, okay. Correspondence, did we have any? I don't think so.
No.
No correspondence. Unfinished business, do we want to do, John, do you want to do your bike race? Could be either unfinished or new, or because we've talked about it before.
Yeah, sure. Since our last meeting, we met at the 271 with our risk manager, Bob Markovic and Tom C. to go over the concept, look at the field that it'd be used on. And, we kicked around some ideas. I think Rich, the GIF's okay with it. I can report that field drains really well, because we were there lunchtime Friday after an all-day rain Thursday, and I wore boots expecting to be muddy or mushy, but it was not at all. Parking was sort of a lingering concern because as we're kind of feeling our way through this. If you've been there, if you looked at the graphic, I tried to highlight, from the survey, there's a lower field and like a larger upper field. The lower field can actually, I pasted off Saturday morning, with social gathering limits, at 50, say we cap it at 40 just to be sure. You probably not even get that, maybe 25 cars. There's ample space for parking. I think it would accomplish two things if we could do that. One, it could be kind of a test case for other events there, because it's a uniquely situated field to do other things in the future. And I think it's if we could get your okay. Now, Tom C suggested doing an official resolution at some point. I guess it raises the level of defenses for the borough should anybody complain, because it would have been a public hearing. And Jack seems to be nodding, in agreement. But if we get your okay to at least not do anything yet, we probably wouldn't set anything up till maybe the second week in April after the 11th when we're back from vacation. But at least go over there, be on the field and kind of just figure out how the course will be configured. Carrie raised a couple of points when I talked to her over the weekend. We're not going to be in the woods. We're not going to be digging stuff up or otherwise damaging the field. Everything's kind of freestanding. So if you can get your resolution next time, but to get you guys okay for us to at least start the sort of the legwork. And we want to publicize it, obviously, in the registration through Bob's group. And I know Bob's pretty stretched, so myself and a couple of others are happy to do all the grunt work under his direction to get everything in place and kind of hand it off to him if that works for him too.
John, what's the date of the actual event?
Well, it'll be a series. It'll be Wednesday nights, starting the target dates starting the 21st and running to June 23rd. So it'll be like 8 weeks of it.
I mean, it's consistent with things that I know we want to do in this town. It's going to bring people here. I would be in favor.
Yeah, and right now we don't have anything else planned for that property, so.
Yeah, and that's a really cool property. First time, now I've walked it a few times. I mean, you could do a lot with that larger field as far as, concerts or what have you. But I think it's accomplishes a couple of things. One is to bring something for the borough. Selfishly, it's a hobby that I have. And two, it kind of highlights the field and kind of like, we're kind of the beta test, on how this thing would work.
I think it's a great idea because I think it also feeds into what we're trying to do with our partnership with the Tour of Somerville and that bike race.
Yeah, 100%.
We are still waiting on.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, John.
No, go ahead.
We did meet with the risk manager and the underwriter and the safety coordinator for the GIF on Friday. As Councilman Donahue suggested, they didn't raise any concerns. I did want to hold off on any resolution until we get something in writing from them, and that's forthcoming. And then we also have to do some coordination with public safety and do a check-in with the town engineer on a couple questions. But otherwise, we're making good progress, I think.
Yeah, and just sort of like, maybe this is sort of like just in the weeds with your okay. There's some holes on the property. Like it looks like there were like tree roots, kind of like trees used to be there. We fill those in. Perhaps the mayor suggested using the restrooms in the cottage in lieu of a porta potty, which was our ask, which we're fine with. But as long as I guess septic is attached, I don't know. I guess John McDowell could answer that question. And maybe there's been some interest in sponsorship or grants through Trek Bicycle Company, but I haven't explored those yet. Walk before we run. You want to get your guys' buy-in first.
So is everyone good with the concept?
Yeah, I think if you encourage people during registration to it, to not park there. Usually that works for like 5K races, like just tell people we encourage carpooling, and usually they get the
Oh, of
message,
course, yeah. I mean,
especially if
it's-
it's all locals, you can just say, try to carpool whenever possible. I think it's great.
Well, they can ride their bike there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
The locals probably
You
will.
don't need
Coming further afield, you got to park somewhere. Our concern was because it's 202, a liability issue, or parking on Crestview, cutting through yards and trespassing. But I think the solution is a lower lot, particularly for future non-bicycle riding events. We'll see how it works and, report back.
Great.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, keep investigating. You got our support. Was there any other unfinished or new business?
Mayor, I think Chief Miller and Chief Valentine have one item. You're glued, Chief. You're muted, Chief. Did I say glued?
Sorry. I know we passed the outdoor dining. We extended the courtesy that we were extending to the restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
My question is when that ordinance passed, was the indemnification to myself, Jeff Price, Kevin Valentine, and Lucy Forgione also extended? Because I did not see the resolution.
Everything was extended, Glenn. All we did was extended the termination date. The end.
Very good. That was the question. Thank you.
Yep, same process. Okay, anything else?
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Let's say we have did you have something before we do the open session?
I'm getting ahead of myself, telling you that we have executive session.
Yeah, you're doing what I'm doing here, skipping the things. It is now our second open session, so if anyone from the public has something they would like to mention to the council, you have a 3-minute time to address the council. Just give your name and address. Raise your hand. I see Carrie's hand up, so you can go.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to comment about John's discussion about the restroom issues. I think that the idea of the bike races is a great idea. I really feel like we are just ideally located for all kinds of biking. I think we have one of the best places you could possibly live if you want to ride a bike in the state, or maybe, I don't know where. It's just amazing here. But about the restrooms, talking about using the cottage, something just flashed through my mind, and I thought, let's be careful about using restrooms that we are not in charge, that we would be in charge of cleaning, because I think there's a special COVID level of clean that has to be instituted. And if we're going to be having a series of 8, we want to be sure that we're going to be able to do that. It might involve some staffing, or just we should check on that before we do it. And maybe a porta potty is an easier solution. I don't know, but I think that I just remember that there is a certain level of clean that we're going to have to maintain in a public restroom that we're having people in. That was it.
Yeah, the other thing I would mention is that I toured that building when we were looking at the property before we acquired it in the first place, and the building itself needed some cleaning. When I say that it needed probably more than a small level of cleaning, to make it really acceptable. So I think that there may be 2 different issues. One would be preparing it in the first place, and then others would be maintaining it in between the races. So we have to check out both those things, I think.
Yeah, and it can happen, as a continuum. I mean, the porta potties is a quick solution as you kind of figure out the rest of it. It's a bit of a test case, and this is how we learn, I suppose, is go up a learning curve and how to make this thing work.
Yeah, I think that was a good point, Carrie. And what we may do is maybe just have it for the organizers to kind of put their stuff in, and they could use it, but the public would use the porta potty, or some kind of a not have a constant flow of people and having to clean it. So yeah, good point. Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Looking for hands. I'm not seeing any. Anthony, you seeing anybody's?
No.
Mayor, it's the chief.
Yes.
I have an email that I think I can address with you all right now and just provide an answer, because you may get the same question that just came across my desk. So the question really had to do with the outcome of the traffic study on Prospect Street. If you recall, we had some issues with parking and safety in the area of the hill where there was some limited sightline visibility. All of the traffic updates are in the monthly reports now. So, on a month-to-month basis, if you get questions from residents, you'll be able to at least have the most recent monthly information in the monthly report. You could refer back to that. But in answer to the specific question tonight, if you recall, for Prospect Street, what we decided was there was nothing that we could do about the parking laws that are in place on that street because they're statutory by state, and we really couldn't do anything else with that. So if you're parking your vehicle in an area and it's unsafe, if there's an accident or if there's a complaint, the officers are going to be responding to those complaints on a case-by-case basis. And it's up to the officer to make a determination if he feels that a parking summons is warranted or not, or the complainant has a right to sign a citizen complaint. We've addressed that with our borough council and our borough prosecutor, and that's about all that could be done with regards to the parking on the street. There'll be no modifications or changes to anything there at this time. We did, however, address the other underlying safety issues. And I did receive a report at 5 o'clock this afternoon as Officer Richard was heading out the door that they were out there today. They put the hill advance warning signs up. So the hill signs are supposed to be there. The radar signs, we have a 15-mile-an-hour speed advisory sign that will hopefully slow vehicles down as they approach the hill from both sides. And we did order a radar sign, a smaller flashing radar sign that would activate when certain speeds being exceeded, that 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. The sign would flash and hopefully slow people down. I do not know if the radar sign is operational or if that went up on the hill advance sign yet today. I don't know how far they got when they were working on that this afternoon. So those signs are going up. The ground thawed enough where we could get the signs up, and they were working on that today. Also on Lloyd Road, they did go back to Lloyd Road. The DPW was supposed to be up there today. They were fixing some additional signs on the existing signage that's up there to increase visibility and warning people to slow down in that area for the pedestrians. And that was a follow-up to our original plan on Lloyd Road. I think we had to order some other signs for up there that are still coming in, so there's a little bit more work to be done up there. And then we addressed another problem, Mayor, I know you're aware of this, about the traffic detour from Meeker Road being closed.
Yeah.
Even though the detour does not officially include Pill Hill Road, people who know the area or are following their Waze units or their GPSs or traveling on Pill Hill Road. And it looks like in some cases they're being diverted through Ann Street, Liberty Road, and cutting over to Mount Airy Road through the neighborhoods there. So what we did is we worked with the project engineer and the county engineers, and we had some modifications made to the detour plan. And we do have additional signage that went up along Pill Hill Road. I don't know, maybe you've seen it, Tom, to try to force people or encourage people to go all the way out to West Oak Street, following their alternative route before they, make a left or right onto Mount Airy Road, hopefully keeping them out of the neighborhood. And we've gone back through the neighborhoods. We've identified some areas where we're going to put some additional signage about children playing and, some additional warning strips for pedestrian awareness and safety on those streets as well. It was recommended that we should reduce the speed limit. We can't reduce the speed limit. The residential speed limit is set at 25 miles an hour. You just can't be reducing the speeds on all the streets that are supposed to be by statute 25 miles an hour unless there's some other extenuating circumstances, such as a very narrow road, sight distance, hills, things like that, other safety hazards. So we're doing everything we can to address those issues. And I only bring that up because I got an email and I see some of you were copied on it. So that's the report on that.
Oh, thank you, Chief. Yeah, that's good information. I know, I had heard about the detour thing. I think I forwarded that on to you, so I'm glad that that's under control. Anybody else from the public wish to be heard? I think we still have the public session open. We've lost a bunch of public. I guess they're gone. Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public session. We do have a closed session, but we will be coming back. We will reopen after that. I think, yes. Are we, Jack, coming back? No.
Yeah.
Not on my end.
And there is a resolution.
There is a
that may-
resolution.
that we may need to pass. So yes, we possibly we may come back.
Okay, so we may reopen. So just with that, would someone move to go into executive session?
I'll move us to executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right. Thank you, public, for being